In a federal courtroom in Boise, the cost of a digital fabrication was finally calculated: $10 million. That is the price for slandering a name in the age of the viral detective. In Pima County, Arizona, as the search for Nancy Guthrie enters its 35th day, a new threat has emerged. Not from the shadows of the desert, but from the glow of a smartphone. The search for a missing woman has collided with a world where intuition is weaponized, and the consequences are permanent. But for one teacher in Tucson, the nightmare didn't start with a crime. It started with a click. Day 35. The investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie remains centered in Tucson, Arizona. Outside the Pima County Sheriff's Office, the presence of tactical units serves as a silent reminder of the raids conducted only weeks ago. Yet the most significant developments may be invisible. Investigators are currently scrutinizing a reported internet outage that occurred in the precise window Nancy vanished. The FBI is canvassing neighbors, seeking a digital footprint that abruptly ended. Official channels remain silent, refusing to comment on the significance of the signal loss. But while the authorities work in the quiet, the internet has become deafening. A pattern is emerging, one that mirrors a landmark case in Idaho. It is a cycle of digital vigilantism where the pursuit of clout often overrides the pursuit of truth. What happens when the public decides the culprit before the police have even secured the scene? The answer lies in a precedent-setting verdict that just shook the foundation of true crime social media. Before a suspect was ever named in the University of Idaho murders, a narrative was born. Ashley Gillard, a TikTok creator claiming psychic abilities, targeted an unlikely figure, Rebecca Schofield, a history professor and department chair. With zero physical evidence, Gillard alleged Schofield had orchestrated the killings of 4 students. It was a theory built on intuition and tarot cards. The claims were not just false, they were architecturally absurd. Gillard alleged Schofield was in a secret relationship with one of the victims, a claim contradicted by every verified detail of the professor's life. Even after the arrest and subsequent conviction of Brian Kohberger, the digital onslaught didn't stop. Gillard doubled down, weaving Kohberger into a widening conspiracy. Why does a demonstrably false theory gain traction? Because in the economy of social media, friction creates heat. While traditional investigators are bound by the slow machinery of the law, the digital sleuth is bound only by the algorithm. For Professor Schofield, the result was a transformation from a respected academic to a community pariah. She realized that in the digital age, being innocent is not the same as being safe. Every major case now carries this secondary infection, the branding of the innocent. The professor attempted to stop the bleeding. She issued legal warnings. She pleaded for a return to reality. But Gillard's response was a calculated act of defiance that would later haunt her in front of a jury. She didn't just ignore the cease and desist. She filmed herself using the legal document as toilet paper. And that's when the professor decided that silence was no longer an option. The federal civil trial that followed was a descent into the surreal. Ashley Gillard chose to represent herself, acting as her own counsel. This created a procedural anomaly. The accused slanderer was permitted to cross-examine her victims directly. For hours, Schofield, her husband, and even her therapist were forced to face Gillard's questioning. Gillard's defense rested on a singular, dangerous premise, that psychics are not bound by facts. Psychics use intuition, she told the court, but the law uses evidence. The jury listened as Schofield's therapist described the onset of post-traumatic stress, a diagnosis Gillard, a combat veteran, attempted to dismantle using her own medical history. The courtroom became a theater of cognitive dissonance. The financial breakdown of the verdict serves as a warning. The jury awarded $2.5 million in compensatory damages for medical expenses and security upgrades. Then they added $7.5 million in punitive damages. It was a wrist slap heard across the country. Whether the money is ever paid is secondary to the message. The First Amendment is not a shield for character assassination, but as this precedent was being set in Idaho, the same toxic mechanisms were already at work in the Nancy Guthrie case. A new name was being dragged into the light. In Tucson, the digital lens shifted toward a man named Dominic Evans. He was a bandmate of Nancy's husband, Tommaso. He was a teacher. He was a friend. On the night the Pima County SWAT team raided the home of Luke Daly, a different kind of mob was forming elsewhere. While police were focused on one house, hundreds of people online were convinced the real raid was happening at Dominic's. And the reason why will make you question everything you see on a timeline. Dominic Evans' connection to the Guthrie family was clinical and brief. Court records and interviews confirm he joined a band called Early Black with Tommaso Guthrie back in 2007. They met through a Craigslist advert. Since 2011, he had seen Nancy Guthrie exactly once at an Easter egg hunt. Despite this, the digital echo chamber decided he was a person of interest. The pressure became so intense that on the night of February 13th, as tactical vehicles moved through Tucson, Evans was too terrified to sleep in his own home. There was no evidence. There was no police interest. There was only a viral suspicion that had decoupled from reality. "I feel like someone's taken my name," Evans later told the New York Times. It is a sentiment echoed by the victims in Idaho. Once a name is attached to a crime in a search engine, it stays there. Experts in public relations testify that it can take 40 years to scrub a false association from a reputation. In the internet age, a mistake by a TikTok sleuth is a life sentence for the subject. We are seeing a collision between two worlds. One world requires attribution, court records, and verified sources. The other world requires only a hashtag. When these worlds clash, the collateral damage is almost always an innocent person. The Guthrie case is currently at this volatile crossroads. The legal status of the Guthrie investigation remains fluid. Luke Daly, the subject of the initial raids, has not been arrested. Verification remains pending on the items seized during that operation. In the absence of official updates, the vacuum is being filled by speculation. The $10 million Schofield verdict creates a new legal landscape for true crime content. It establishes that best intentions or helping the police are not valid defenses for defamation. If you broadcast a name without a factual anchor, you are now operating in a high-risk environment. In Pima County, the procedural reality is this. The FBI is looking for data, not tarot readings. They are investigating the internet outage because it represents a physical, verifiable anomaly in the timeline. They are looking for the Bite Light DNA and the Ozark Trail backpack mentioned in earlier filings. These are the entities that will solve this case. Everything else is noise. The search for Nancy Guthrie enters its second month. The next critical window is the release of the forensic analysis from the February raids. Those documents will either provide the link investigators need or reset the clock to zero. We are also watching the federal courts. Ashley Gillard has indicated she plans to appeal the $10 million judgment. That process will determine if the psychic defense has any remaining legs in the American legal system. In Tucson, the Pima County Sheriff's Office continues to maintain a perimeter of silence. For the family of Nancy Guthrie, every day without an answer is a fresh trauma. For those caught in the crossfire of digital suspicion, the damage is already done. What happens when the truth finally emerges? Will the people who spread the lies delete their posts, or will they simply move on to the next tragedy? The hearing for the next set of motions in the Schofield case is approaching. In Arizona, the desert continues to hold its secrets. We are watching the evidence. We are waiting for the facts, because in the end, the truth doesn't need a hashtag to be real.